Good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. Welcome into Trail Tidbits, Volquest.com recruiting mini pod. I'm Eric Kane, and that is Matt Ray. Got a lot to discuss here in the next 20 or so minutes, so let's dive into it, Matt. A massive, massive recruiting weekend for Tennessee. It's the Georgia game, obviously a big game in itself. But Tennessee is going to be hosting 5 official visitors and a couple flip candidates. Let's start first with a guy who just committed, or just decommitted rather, from LSU, been trending away there for a while. Not an official visit, but Kai Bates is back in town. This is a Tennessee-Florida State battle, and a big weekend for Tennessee to try to close it or to try to really, really, really move that needle towards the finish line.
Yeah, Kai Bates is coming off a visit to Florida State, and I think there's a little bit of, reading into that probably. Florida State's been in this. They've been in it for a while, and we've touched on that. But Kai Bates has been trending away from LSU for a little while now. Tennessee's continued to work in this one. I've talked to Kai Bates, a couple times recently, and the Vols have been a constant for him. And I think that's one thing that continues to stand out. The hope is to get him here this weekend. He should be in town. And it's going to be a big chance to try to impress him. He's got a really good relationship with Brian Jean-Marie, Willie Martinez, and John Scheimel. I think he really likes the opportunity at Tennessee. To be honest with you, I think he liked it the first time around. And that's why we continue to reiterate that the Vols could be in this one until the end, and they've played the long game, and now they have a chance with Kai Bates. The more you talk to people, it does seem like FSU is a legitimate threat. But right now, Tennessee has a chance to really grab momentum this weekend and push this one toward the finish line, as they're in as good a spot as anybody for Kai Bates right now, in my opinion.
A flip candidate, and Tennessee's kind of got the inside track here because he's a teammate of 2024 quarterback Jake Merklinger, who we'll get in a moment. A really, really nice game, and we'll recap that in the stat roundup. But this is Michael Smith, 4-star tight end, really highly rated, of course, from Calvary Day. He's going to be in town for an official visit. That's Michael Smith, tight end, and he's currently a South Carolina commitment. Chance for Tennessee to try to flip this guy.
Yeah, we've kind of said here for the last 4 or 5 weeks that Tennessee needed to get Michael Smith in town for it to feel real. Getting him here this weekend, Jake Merklinger set to be back in town. I think that's big for Tennessee. They have his ear right now. Conversations have been pretty good. You need to take another step in that one this weekend. But this is going to be one of those recruitments that goes into December. Auburn's working to get him on campus for the Iron Bowl, and it would be pretty surprising if he doesn't make it back there at this point. But South Carolina battling tooth and nail to hold on to him. But this is, to me, for Tennessee, there's been some familiarity there. Jake Merklinger's been in his ear for a while. But for me, this is the opportunity for Tennessee to make a move in this recruitment and solidify themselves as this one pushes towards signing day.
All right, so you start off strong with two guys Tennessee very much wants in Kai Bates and Michael Smith. Let's go on to some other official visitors planning to be in town. One of those, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. We talk about him every single week here on Trail Tidbits. That is Jordan Seaton of IMG Academy.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton to update with Jordan Seaton leading into this official visit. It's important. It's one of the most important visits of the weekend, probably the most important, depending on how you want to look at it. Again, for him, a chance to be back around this staff, continue to build familiarity, get more comfortable in Knoxville. Boo Carter will be back in town this weekend. Those two have hit it off heavily during the recruiting process. Who hasn't Boo Carter hit it off with at this point? It would be a shorter list, in my opinion. But, those two have connected. I think for Jordan Seaton, he'll be around some faces that he knows once again, as Tennessee will have a host of commits in town. And, they're gonna try to push this to the finish line. This is going to be a recruitment that, is continued to be decided in the coming weeks. We'll see if he makes it back to Ohio State sometime between now and signing day. It feels like they have a chance. Oklahoma's still battling to be in this, but Alabama's been in a good spot since the spring, and they're staying steady there. Florida's in the mix heavily as well. So this is an important visit for Tennessee this weekend with Jordan Seaton, as they continue to show well in this recruitment. But this is a heavyweight. This is the heavyweight battle that you're looking at. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's several others in this class that are big boy battles, but this is the main card of WrestleMania. If you want to call it that.
Welcome to the main event.
Yeah, this is the guy that in 2024 that you can kind of change the dynamic of this class, and it's already a solid recruiting class. But you close with Jordan Seaton on the offensive line, and it's been an impressive haul for Glenn Ellerby and company.
I think the most talked about targets during the football season here in the fall in 2024 has been Cam Michael. Of course, Tennessee, Georgia, Colorado. Cam Michael, he plays wide receiver, he plays defensive back, he plays little running back, he's playing quarterback right now. We'll get to that here in a moment in our stat roundup. But Cam Michael, it was here officially earlier in the season, coming back for the Georgia weekend, and another one that Tennessee needs to show well with.
Yeah, this is, again, I think you're right. I think this has probably been one of the more talked about recruitments for some time. You're talking about a top 100 guy. And the funny thing is, I mentioned this in the Monday night chat over on the General's quarters, is I don't think Cam Michael enjoys the process of being a top 100 guy that everyone's talking about and trying to figure out and things like that. I think he just enjoys being Cam Michael, and it's kind of why this process has been his. There's been different times where schools have tried to push him one direction or another. Georgia tried to push him into the class as a defensive back several months ago. Now here they are having to try to recruit him as a receiver. He's been busy on the road of late. He's been to Colorado. He's been to Georgia. Those are the two schools that are shaping up to be the biggest competition for the playmaker from Statesboro. And he's relatively quiet right now. But Tennessee again has been a constant in this one. So I think for him this weekend, and we'll have a little bit more on him throughout the week. This is going to be about getting back up there and being around the people. He's seen everything. He's seen everything at the engineering college. That's important to him. He wants to be around the people. He wants to see, what it's like another weekend on Rocky Top. His family expected to be in town with him. It'll be good for him to be around Jake Merklinger. There's a relationship there. This is a big weekend, obviously, when you're talking about it just being 5 days away, but just the way after this visit being 5 days away from his commitment. But when you look at the way that Cam Michaels attacked his decision, I do think that he goes home and he takes a couple of days to decompress, and then he finalizes it. I don't think it's going to be a visit high decision. I do think it's big for Tennessee to get the last pitch, obviously, but I don't think it will be a visit high decision. I think he's a guy that will go home, decompress, talk to his family, and find the fit that's right for him. One thing that he consistently tells me is all of these schools are good in their own way.
Matt, AP and I on the field there after the Missouri game, we were doing that recruiting roundup, and we brought up Elias Williams, and of course he's a defensive line commit for Missouri, and we wondered if he would even make it to town after Missouri just trounced Tennessee last weekend. Of course, Missouri's doing all they can, saying, well, why are you going to go there? We just handle business up here. Why are you going to go entertain that? But as it stands right now, Elias Williams, the defensive line commit, flip candidate for Tennessee, going to host him this weekend, and a chance to again move the meter and to kind of show, hey, and again, one game, we talk about this in recruiting all the time. One game doesn't make or break a recruitment, but it's not good when your main competition, the school that he's recruited to or committed to, just beat your brains in last week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's for Missouri, who's fighting tooth and nail to hang on to him. It's a selling point, right? We dominated them up front, and we think it can be even better when you get here. For Tennessee, you have a chance to get him back. Here's the thing working in Tennessee's favor in this one is Tennessee can sit and point to a dominant performance from the defensive front against Texas A&M. He was in town for that game. That's why it was so important to get him here on that official visit. He told me on Tuesday afternoon that the plan was to still be in Knoxville this weekend. We plan to have a preview of his official visit coming up over on Volquest this week. This is a big visit. This is a guy that Tennessee covets. He is, in my opinion, the guy on the defensive line that the Vols would like to add to this class. And you're still battling Alabama. Things went well there, for that visit. But, I think Tennessee is a strong contender in this one, and this visit will go a long way for Elias Williams. We've talked about this a good bit with him, and you talk about one game swaying one thing or another. I don't think he is far enough along in the process that he's a guy that can look at it that way. You know what I'm saying? He he's committed to Missouri. He's got big time offers, but really all this kind of started blowing up for him in August, and now it's moving at warp speed. So I think he's trying to take in a lot and look at everything, not so much just an one single game result. So I think again, this official visit will be huge. We'll see if he visits anywhere else again after this weekend, but from there it'll go to those in-home visits for Elias Williams.
All right, let's get one more prep star before we go to the junior college route. A couple of big JUCO guys in this weekend. Talked about Michael Smith, teammate of Jake Merklinger, current commit of South Carolina. That's a huge target for Tennessee, but another target, tight end position that's continued to kind of come around a little bit. It was big back in the summer, went away a little bit. Tennessee's kind of back in it. Likely going to Oregon, but who knows? It's going to be Roger Saliaponga that's going to be in this weekend, and Tennessee needs another tight end in the worst way. Tennessee has got to replenish at that position, and if you can take both, you take both, but that's likely not going to happen. But a chance to get Roger back in town and try to put your best foot forward, that's this weekend for Tennessee.
Yeah, this is another one that Tennessee's played the long game with. Roger Saliaponga was very upfront that this recruitment was going to stretch out into November, December. He wanted to focus on things at a high school level. He fielded calls from coaches, but he didn't want to be on the road. A tremendous amount taken away from his team. He's right in the middle of an official visit slate. Oregon's very much in play. Auburn's working in this one as well, and Tennessee's hanging around in the mix. I think he's got a really good relationship with Alec Ablin. I think the way that this staff has continued to work with him, working some ties from out in that area, I think he's hearing from Josh Heupel pretty routinely. I think he's hearing the pitch that they need guys that can be pass catchers. I think one thing that he'll focus on this weekend is that pass catching aspect of what these tight ends do, or at least how they try to get them involved in the pass game. He wants to see the developmental side of things. But again, with Tennessee, there's opportunity there, right? You look at Oregon, the Ferguson kid out there is young. The tight end out there is young, but he's getting some run. He's a really good football player. You look at Auburn, there's going to be opportunity there, but there's going to be opportunity here at Tennessee too, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to try to sell to him throughout this weekend. And I think for him, there's enough familiarity here that with 2 visits, it could be Tennessee. He hasn't visited a lot of places so far, and he's pretty comfortable with that. I think one thing for Roger, and we'll have a little bit more on him later in the week as well, is he made an interesting comment to me that he and his family do not believe in transferring. That's something that they don't believe in, and they want to find the school that's right for them, despite the fact that they haven't been on the road that much. So these visits are important. It's another opportunity for Tennessee to continue to build, a relationship with a guy that they've been in it with for some time.
Yeah, it's good to say that you don't believe in transfer and everything. Things change throughout your collegiate career, obviously. So, but still, you want to get that first crack. You want to get him on campus. And I would point to, Jacob Warren has 3 receiving touchdowns. He's got barely over 100 yards receiving on the season, but he's got 3 receiving touchdowns. And I'm pretty sure McCown Castles, I'm not sure off the top of my head, but he's got at least 3 as well. That should be a selling point for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at it, there's a relationship there with guys in that tight end room already. You got to know them a little bit in the summer. Wants to get back around that this summer or this visit and hear more. He generally tries to do that on visits. He generally tries to hear from players in the room and hear, what the coaches are about, what the program's about, what the offense is about. And if you're looking at it, I think for Tennessee, that is something that works in your favor when you have a guy that's coming in doing that. You have Jacob Warren, a veteran who is probably old enough to be a coach here by the time he leaves. He can tell you everything and be very open and genuine with you, and I think McCallan Castles is the same way. So I think that's something that will help Tennessee this weekend, is having those 2 guys able to have conversation with Roger Saliaponga.
2 junior college defensive linemen we've talked about throughout the fall making their way in for official visits. Let's start with Kamari Copeland. Who is he? How big can this weekend be for Copeland, and what's he looking to get out of this weekend here in Knoxville?
Yeah, this can be a big visit for Kamari Copeland. I think he's a guy that Tennessee likes pretty good bit. I think this weekend when you have these prep guys come through, most of the time you've had them on campus at least once or twice, right? So you have an idea for what to expect from them. You've weighed them in, you've measured them in. I think with these junior college guys, you got to go through some of those formalities. You got to weigh them in. You got to see what they're all about. I think those are some things that are an aspect that go into a visit like this. But I think if Kamari Copeland checks the boxes, I think there's a chance that he's a guy that Tennessee pushes for. I think he does a lot of things up front that they like, can play multiple techniques. He's explosive off the ball, really violent hands. And that fits into what Tennessee wants to do on the front seven. So, for him, he's kind of played things closer to the vest. It's hard to judge where this recruitment is for him right now. Tennessee's certainly in the mix. Auburn's been a team that's been mentioned. With these junior college guys, you have to take into effect they're also playing a season of their own. So for them, a lot of this relationship building is just coming over the phone. So it's hard for them to process. So it feels like for Kamari Copeland and who we'll talk about next, Brian Taylor, that these decisions will go into December as they take more official visits and field more calls from coaches once their season is over.
Yep. So Amari Copeland's one. The other one coming in is Brian Taylor. And again, you got to check those boxes, got to weigh, you got to measure, got to make sure that they are physically able. I mean, that's you're always taking a chance when you go JUCO route. But again, you can find some gems down there. There's been several instances over the years for sure.
This
Taylor
junior college. This junior college class is loaded along the defensive line. I mean, you look there at the recruiting prediction machine, and Georgia's favored for a junior college defensive line. And it's been some time since we've seen Georgia recruit a junior college defensive lineman, but they're recruiting a couple because this defensive line class from the junior college ranks is viewed very highly. And Brian Taylor's another guy that fits right into that mold.
Yeah, Brian Taylor, what about him? What does Tennessee like about him? And, what's going to be big for him in this visit this weekend?
He's a guy this weekend that I think wants to learn more about the program in general, looking for, typical stuff, family feel, what's it like being around the coaches? What's kind of the day-to-day like, here at Tennessee? He's a guy that Tennessee likes more as an end, a five technique that can move around. To me, probably plays a little bit of that hand in the dirt role, similar to what Tyler Barron's played this season. Trying to be creative with how you line him up. But for him this weekend, I think he wants to come in, ask some questions, see what this program's all about. He's open. He's pretty open that Tennessee is among his favorite schools. He's told me that for well over a month. And one of the reasons why is that Tennessee communicating with him on a lot of different levels. From Josh Heupel to Rodney Garner to Chop, all those guys are in his ear, having good communication with him. So I think that's been important to him throughout. And I think that's one of the more unique things that Tennessee has working for him is they're prioritizing him and with multiple coaches reaching out right now.
All right. So Tennessee's hosting a ton. I know you have names, but real quick, do you have like a number? How many guys, how many 24s are going to be on campus? We'll get to 25s in a moment.
24s, man, it's a big number if you count commitments.
So I mean, like big numbers, but 5 official visitors, the headliners here: Kai Bates, Michael Smith, Jordan Seaton, Cam Michael, Elijah Williams, Amari Copeland, Brian Taylor, and Roger Saliapongi. Anybody else that's a super headliner for this weekend?
In 24, no. In 25, there's some big names that will roll into town. And George McIntyre, obviously, your priority quarterback target. The good in-state crop expected in town this weekend. Jalen Morgan, 4-star safety. Cameron Sparks, 4-star athlete out of Baylor. Ethan Utley, 4-star defensive lineman out of Innsworth. All those guys expected to be back in town. David Sanders, the number 1 offensive tackle in 2025, expected in town. Josh Petty, the number 2 offensive tackle in 2025, potentially will be in town. Juan Gaston, a top 10 offensive tackle in 2025 from the Atlanta area, will be in town. Jordan Young, the number 1 athlete prospect in 2025, will be in town. Caleb Cunningham, a 5-star wide receiver from Mississippi, will be in town. It's a massive weekend for Tennessee, on that front.
Like a walking, talking encyclopedia. That's what Matt Ray is for this weekend. Really about recruiting overall, does a fantastic job. So We've taken a look at the headliners for the 2024 class, the 5OVs, and those guys that we mentioned. Matt just rattled off, Cam Sparks, obviously George McIntyre, some headliners for 2025s. Let's get into our stat roundup to finish off this week's Trail Tidbits. And let's start with the quarterback of the class of 2024, Jake Merklinger, and a win. Pressing towards at least in East Tennessee, Matt. We're at quarterfinals this weekend. I would imagine that's the same way, elsewhere. But you're moving on throughout the playoffs. Jake Merklinger, 13 for 13, a perfect day through the air, 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jake Merklinger just continues to show why he is an SEC quarterback.
Yeah, just again, we say it every time we talk about him. Somehow he's continued to get more efficient every time we talk about him. It felt like maybe the first time he was like 9 to 13 and then 13 to 16. Now he's 13 to 13. But a big win, moves forward in the playoffs, and just continues to show why Tennessee covets him, a guy that distributes the ball, doesn't turn it over, and is very, very efficient.
I think if you're watching the YouTube right now, I think this is his freshman year. I could be wrong, maybe sophomore year. This is his freshman year. We're going to go with that, running a 2-minute drill. I mean, the dude just looks super polished even years ago, and he continues to get better.
He's really good in the pocket. I mean, he really, really moves so well in the pocket.
Yeah, and of course, you're seeing here a couple of these throws outside the pocket as well. All right, so Jake Merklinger, a really good week last week. Boo Carter setting up for a rematch of the regional championship as Bradley Central is going to host Bearden. But Boo Carter does a little bit of everything again. 98-yard kick return for a touchdown. He had an interception, had a pair of rushing touchdowns. He's a wide receiver. There's no receiving stats there, but he literally, like Cam Michael, does a little bit of everything. Boo Carter continues to look like one of the most dangerous players in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, from what I'm told, that 98-yard kick return is a Bradley Central record for a kick return. The interception, I did see a video of it, was a one-handed interception that was a special play. And then Bradley Central is really creative in the way they get Boo Carter the football. He's a guy that does multiple different things with it, as you can see there, but game breaker. That's all you can say about him. Just like I mentioned earlier in the show, the list of people that Boo Carter has it connected with in the recruiting world, I think, how many times has he not been on, stat sheet stuffers here? Like, I would like to know that, because he's on there every week, because he's literally making plays every week in 6A football in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, and you're seeing him lay the wood right there. This is his junior year tape, but laying the wood right there from the safety position. And of course, Tennessee hopes that is a sign to come for years to come here in Knoxville. Jordan Ross, edge player, 12 tackles, 3 TFLs, had a sack and a half. He continues to get more polished, and as we talked about last week, more of a pass rusher. But obviously, at the high school level, you kind of rack up the stats there: 12 tackles, 3 TFLs, and a sack and a half.
Yeah, Jordan Ross helped Vestavia Hills to another playoff victory and sets up a big matchup for those guys against Thompson this weekend. Kind of in the state of Alabama for the last several years, it's if you're going to win a state title, you're going to have to go through Thompson. And for about 3 years in a row there, I think nobody did it. I don't know how things played out last year for them. They may have won it again, but they did make a run. I feel pretty confident. But, Jordan Ross has set up a big matchup there. Thompson's going to have plenty of playmakers. They're going to throw the ball. They've got a young quarterback. It's crazy to even say 2027. I know it sounds crazy. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in 2027. I saw him last year as an 8th grader thrown into action against Buford, who's a powerhouse out of Atlanta, and he came in and led some successful drives in that game, and he kind of took that job and ran with it. He's visited Tennessee's campus before. That's Trent Seaborn. Welcome to Trail Tidbits, a 2027 name to know across the country at quarterback.
We call gambling addicts degenerates, Chinese basketball, table tennis, all that type of stuff. I mean, we're talking 2027 recruiting here on Trail Tidbits. But hey, Matt Ray's the guy to do just that. Last guy, let's end here. We've already talked about him once. That's Cam Michael, doing just a little bit of everything. Learn something new every day. Was a quarterback earlier in his career, playing a little Wildcat quarterback this year. You see right here, if you're watching on YouTube, 3 passing touchdowns, 209 yards on the ground, working out of that Wildcat. No receiving stats, but again, Cam Michael's a receiver as well. Georgia likes him as a defensive back. Tennessee likes him as a wide receiver athlete. Cam Michael does it all, and he continues to be a big reason why his team continues to win and win and win on into November.
Yeah, so here's the thing for me with Cam Michael, right? I went to Statesboro and saw him early in the year, maybe week 3 of their season. And at the time, Cam Michael, admittedly, he admits he is raw as a receiver. He wants the ball in his hands in some way on the offensive side of the football, but he admits that he's raw. There's room for plenty of polish, and he's a dynamic athlete with game breaking speed. That game right here that you're seeing right here, he returned some kicks and he played receiver, and they struggled at the quarterback position. They struggled to get the football in his hands, even on shorter stuff that they were, moving him around, trying to find ways to get him in space, just to get him a step to where he could go make a play. That game went down to the wire, and all of a sudden, fourth quarter, the opposing team's driving. Guess who checks himself in at defensive back? Cam Michael. Guess who makes the game-saving tackle? Cam Michael. Here we are in November, and Cam Michael, who's played receiver primarily all season long, has now reverted back to that wildcat quarterback role, doing whatever it takes to help his team win. That, to me, should tell you who Cam Michael is.
And again, this is not a shot at coaching staffs or anything, but like so many times, it's just like, just get the ball in your playmaker's hand at this level, because you're playing at this level. And I know Georgia high school football is so much better than a lot of the high school football in this state and other states, even though the high school football in this state's gotten pretty good here lately.
Yeah, it has.
But just get the football into your playmaker's hands. And like in baseball, especially at the college level, like a lot of times, like your best hitter, hit him leadoff. It's just like, just give more opportunities to those guys. So that shocks me none that he is doing that wildcat quarterback, using his legs, his arm to win playoff games. And you're right. That says a lot about Cam Michael, the unselfishness of Cam Michael. A big weekend for Cam Michael here in Knoxville. Obviously, Trail Tidbits went 29 minutes. We're about at 29 minutes right now. A loaded weekend coming up. Obviously, Tennessee football has a big-time football game coming up against the Georgia Bulldogs, the top-ranked Kirby Smarts. And we're going to recap it all, preview it all, coverage all Saturday long right here at Volquest.com. And then, Matt, on Sunday and Monday and all next week, we're going to have tons and tons of recruiting coverage led by UNAP to kind of recap what this weekend meant to some of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have you guys covered coming out of the weekend. It's a huge weekend. Again, 5 official visitors, numerous 2024 and 2025 targets and names to know throughout that cycle. Guys that Tennessee will try to be in it until the end for in 2025 as well.
I am Eric Kane. That man is Albert Pujols, the machine. Or Matt Ray in terms of the machine and covering recruiting. And this is Trail Tidbits, Volquest.com.